Well, that didn't take long. As it turns out, all we needed was a new president. Take a look at this graph, gang. This is an inflation graph from Trueflation. Biden inflation is now officially over. Inflation is down to 1.8% as of today. This is data just in from Trueflation. Trueflation is a bit ahead of the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. So Peter St. Onge, he noted that Trueflation uses 10 million real-time prices drawn directly from sellers, whereas the Consumer Price Index samples 80,000 prices lagged by about 2 weeks or so. So we're seeing in real time here Trump fixing Biden's inflation in literally 6 weeks. Now we can see it at the micro level as well. This is pretty cool. You may have seen this. Egg prices are finally dropping, according to Trading Economics, after reaching an all-time high of $8.17 per dozen in early March. Egg prices have plummeted to $5.51, which now sits well below the nearly $7 average when President Trump took office in January. So now egg prices are officially lower under Trump than they were under Biden. So this, of course, right here raises the question, what are the Democrats going to do? What are the Democrats going to do now? I mean, if they don't have high egg prices, now what are they going to do? Remember, what's good news for the country is always bad news for the Democrats. They were doing their best to try to blame President Trump for the spike in egg prices, even although Trump inherited an already spiking price of eggs from Joe Biden. I mean, the Biden administration's disastrous decision to slaughter 150 million chickens in an attempt to contain avian flu is what precipitated the price increase, right? You can't kill 150 million egg-laying chickens and not send prices soaring. It was so bad that major restaurant chains like Denny's and Waffle House were forced to actually implement egg surcharges just to stay afloat. Some markets saw prices reach absurd levels. A San Francisco Safeway was reportedly charging $10.99 a dozen. But again, the key here is that these prices started to soar before January 20th. The legacy media, of course, knew that. The bought and paid for media knew it. They ignored it until Trump assumed office. And all of a sudden, well, what do you know? In unison, the media tried to blame Trump. Well, Trump caused an egg shortage somehow. Yeah, well, fortunately, nobody's buying that anymore since people have largely turned off the legacy media. All the latest polls show that their trust and confidence has never been as low as it is right now, and deservedly so. But Trump was indeed very proactive in addressing the price of eggs. Back in February, Newsweek reported how the Trump administration was rolling out a 5-part plan to tackle soaring egg prices, including a $500 million investment in farm biosecurity, $400 million in aid for those hit by the avian flu, and $100 million for vaccine and therapeutic research. It also called for reviewing restrictive state animal welfare regulations and negotiating the import of up to 100 million eggs in the coming months, efforts that are clearly already literally paying off. And it's not just egg prices. Have you seen this? For the third consecutive week in a row, gas prices are down. Now, the average price is now just over $3 a gallon. Right now, as we speak, the price of gas has gone down by nearly 10 cents per gallon from 1 month ago and 37 cents per gallon from a year ago. All 50 states, even California, are now seeing lower prices than they were at this time last year. And right now, we're at the lowest price for gas we've actually seen in 4 years. And prices are only going to continue to go down, especially with the cost of energy diminishing. Bloomberg is reporting that President Trump has asked Saudi Arabia to increase their oil production and lower prices. This was back in January, and they have done so. And Trump, of course, is also ramping up domestic production, doing things like putting the 625 million acres that Biden banned from further oil and gas leases back into play on the balance sheet, as it were. And that's huge because, not only will energy independence keep our nation relatively immune from energy fluctuations around the world, But it's also key to tackling inflation by lowering prices as a whole, since high gas prices are a big component in inflation. That's been one of Trump's mainstays, as you know. Every time he was asked during the campaign, how are you going to lower inflation? His answer was always, we have got to get the price of energy down. We've got to get the price of energy down. Everything goes down once the price of energy goes down. And it looks like we're seeing that happening in real time. Here's a nice breakdown from Wokeness, one of my favorite accounts on X. Border crossings down 93%. Gas prices hit a 4-year low. Eggs down $1.80 per dozen. Job growth 93%. Private up. Job growth up. Inflation down to 1.8%. And then he did add, and the media is just snoozing through all this. So anyway, we do have a bit of a tariff war heating up here. I know some people are a little nervous with that. Trump is going to be imposing an additional 25% tariff on Canadian steel and aluminum in retaliation for Ontario's electricity tariff. Canadians, however, are getting very, very rightly very, very worried over a tariff war with the United States, which their leaders appear to be relatively hell-bent on engaging in. But from what I see, everyone said this is a losing proposition on their end, both Canada and Mexico. Over 75% of Canada's exports go to the United States. Just let that hit you. 75% of Canada's exports go south. They come here. That's nearly 20% of their GDP. It's even worse for Mexico. Nearly 80% of their exports come here to the United States, making up about 40% of their GDP. For America, our exports to both Canada and Mexico combined is not even 3% of our exports. You all know that I'm very passionate about the fact that we simply can't rescue our nation if we don't first take care of ourselves, and health actually starts with our livers. Now, if you think about it, we throw everything at our livers: cholesterol, alcohol, toxins, Tylenol, statins, cigarettes, you name it. That's why so many of us have a sluggish, fatty liver that makes us gain weight and lose energy. But thanks to today's sponsor, there's a very real solution. Liver Health Formula is an all-natural supplement which contains 12 clinically proven botanicals that help recharge and protect your liver. It's manufactured right here in the USA and approved by independent American doctors. And if you click on that link below right now, you can try Liver Health Formula and receive a free bottle of blood sugar formula when you order today. So don't let a fatty liver keep you sluggish and inactive. Gang, you know, for me, this is very, very personal. I myself recently lost over 60 pounds, and I can say it was one of the best decisions I ever made. So now it's your turn. Click on that link below or go to getliverhelp.com/Turley and claim your free bonus gift. That's getliverhelp.com/Turley. So a tariff war with the United States would hit Canada and Mexico inordinately harder than it would adversely affect us here in the States. So they really don't have any leverage here. Trump knows that, and he knows it's only a matter of time before Mexico and Canada comply. Interestingly, though, we are seeing the vast majority of the American people behind these reciprocal tariffs. I don't know if you've seen the polling on this, but reciprocal tariffs consistently get a 60+ approval among voters, 60+% approval. Voters generally just see it as a fairness issue. So if a nation is taxing us, they just think we should tax them. Reciprocal tariffs are actually very, very popular. And again, the legacy media wants to just make it solely about economics, solely about raising price. This is a hidden tax, all that kind of stuff. Case in point, things got a little heated over tariffs in the White House press room today. Check this out.
Step back for a second. When President Trump last addressed the BRT when he was on the campaign trail, his big push was on tax cuts. He's going there today as he's proposing tax hikes in the form of tariffs.
Not
and
true.
I'm curious
He's not
for
doing
why
that.
he's prioritizing that over the tax cuts.
He's actually not implementing tax hikes. Tariffs are a tax hike on foreign countries that, again, have been ripping us off. Tariffs are a tax cut for the American people, and the president is a staunch advocate of tax cuts. As you know, he campaigned on no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, no taxes on Social Security benefits. He is committed to all three of those things, and he expects Congress to pass them later this year.
I'm sorry, have you ever paid a tariff? Because I have.
That's
They
it.
don't get charged on foreign companies. They get charged on the importers.
And ultimately, when we have fair and balanced trade, which the American people have not seen in decades, as I said at the beginning, revenues will stay here, wages will go up, and our country will be made wealthy again. And I think it's insulting that you are trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made. I'm now regret giving a question to the Associated Press.
Well, at least they let him in the room. I don't know if they've renamed it the Gulf of America yet. I don't know. But what Caroline Levitt is getting at there is that we are seeing a globalist economic order increasingly replaced by an economic nationalist order. And the key to economic nationalism is that it's ironically far more diverse than globalism. So globalism is actually nothing more than a one-size-fits-all managerial approach to economy and trade. Ironically, it's economic nationalism that is far more diverse, but economic nationalism often gets caricatured as really nothing more than just imposing tariffs on other countries and the like. But you have to remember that tariffs on or taxes or foreign-made goods, is just solely comprising economic nationalism is actually a real misunderstanding of economic nationalism. And that economic nationalism, in that to the extent that it is associated merely with protectionism and the imposition of tariffs on all foreign goods, what it does is it misses the nationalism part of the economics. Critics often wrongly leave out the nationalist dimension when they reduce economic nationalism to protectionism. What they're doing is they're actually confusing nationalism with statism. So while protectionism certainly involves the state imposing tariffs on certain goods or regulating what can be bought and sold, state activity is not necessarily nationalist. Often the state does things that are very bad for the nation. I mean, there's a clear distinction. Statism is institutional, while nationalism is trans-institutional. Statism deals with the government, whereas nationalism deals with the culture as a whole. And so the important point here is that while economic nationalism may involve protectionism, it can't be reduced to protectionism. Instead, as the name implies, scholars see economic nationalism as an economic approach that's intentionally pursued for the benefit of the culture, the customs, and traditions that collectively comprise the nation. So economic nationalism is a facet really of national identity, where certain kinds of cultures, traditions, religions, ethnicities forge distinctive economic policies in accordance with specific national traits. And so what this means is that economic nationalism can certainly involve protectionist measures, as we're seeing now with President Trump. But as we've seen with, say, Bolsonaro's Brazil a couple of years back, or what we're seeing now with Javier Milei's Argentina, it may involve actually highly libertarian free trade policies. So economic nationalism can involve protectionism, but it can also involve free trade measures, subsidies, controlled markets, free markets. It all just comes down to the needs of the culture. Economic nationalism it's literally entails all of the above. It can be very libertarian in some national contexts. It can be highly regulatory in others. The important point here is that the purpose of the economy is now for the protection and perpetuation of a nation's culture, customs, and traditions, not the other way around. The economy is not seen as some sovereign in an economic nationalist view, right? The economy is not some scientifically rationalist system that superimposes itself on nations and cultures, particularly through transnational institutions, which of course then just ends up belittling and relativizing those cultures and religions and traditions. By contrast with economic nationalism, the economy is rightly seen as either as an extension or even subservient to the national and cultural identity, and is therefore to protect and perpetuate such a national and cultural identity. I remember talking to the foreign minister of Brazil, Ernesto Araújo, and he was arguing that, saying, look, our country's been so stagnant under decades of Marxism. We need to unleash our economy through free market principles. And so they saw free market principles as very much behind their version of economic nationalism. And look, I think that's exactly what we're going to be seeing more and more of throughout the world. So in many ways, what we see unfolding here between the United States and Canada and Mexico and the EU and the like, what it does is it signals the end of a one-size-fits-all globalist economics and the emergence of a very diverse worldwide economic nationalisms, I should say. It's going to be absolutely fascinating to watch it unfold. By the way, click on the link in the description below to get all these articles and tweets I reference throughout my videos emailed to you each and every day. You're going to love it. We want you to have the best resources out there to convince your family and your friends of this new MAGA super age that's rising here.